Heavy bleeding, debilitating cramps, silent suffering for too many young women, especially black women. This is the unspoken reality of fibroids. While these growths affect millions, the conversations around them often start far too late. Symptoms are brushed off, pain is normalized, and silence becomes the status quo. But what if speaking up could save a womb, or save a future, or save a life? Now, July is Fibroid Awareness Month. And it's time that we ask the critical questions. Why don't we talk about this early enough? Or why don't we even talk about this enough or at all? Today on FAFANUA Africa, we explore the quiet pain, the medical gaps, and the urgent need to rewrite the narrative around reproductive health. This is FAFANUA Africa, the show that spotlights the challenges of the youths, regardless of their gender, regardless of the country they are on the African continent, and we try to provide some profound solutions to some of these challenges. My name is Mosugu, and I'll be your host for the next few minutes, or almost an hour, of the show of insightful conversation. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Now, fibroids don't just appear in your 30s. In fact, many women start developing them in their teens. But without information, many suffer in silence, dismissed, misdiagnosed, or misunderstood. So today we're diving deep into the systems, the stigmas, and the silences that surround young women and fibroids. Because pain is not normal, and it's time that we said so. Joining us today to discuss this, of course, it's not about to be a monologue. I have two amazing guests with us, and of course, we'll be joined by the third in no time. I have joining me right now Professor Rosemary Ogu, National President, Medical Women's Association of Nigeria, joining us from Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Thank you so much, Professor Rosemary, for joining us. All right, we also have joining us Dr. Emeka Philip-Igbodike, consultant obstetrician, gynecologist, minimal access surgeon, who's joining us in Lagos. Thank you so much, Dr. Emeka, for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let me start by asking Dr. Rosemary. Now, we hear about fibroids a lot, and I think my first question to you would be, what are some of the myths surrounding fibroids that we've heard over time, especially in Nigeria? And for young girls, like what young girls believe about fibroids? Professor Rosemary, can you hear me? All right, while we're waiting to establish connection with Professor Rosemary, let me ask Dr. Emeka. I don't know if you got my question. So one of the challenges that we have in Nigeria especially, or the African continent, is that we don't hear about this a lot. So what do you think are some of the beliefs that the younger girls especially have about fibroids when they first hear about it?
And especially, of course, Nigeria is part of Africa. And the truth of the matter is that people don't necessarily believe that people should, they should be associated with uterine fibroids. You know, they don't want to be associated with uterine fibroids. They believe that when you mention that they have uterine fibroids, it might affect, especially for the young ones, people coming after them when it has to do with marriage. A young man knowing that this young girl has uterine fibroid, it may affect his intentions. So most of the time, the young lady will not want to, to honor that she has a uterine fibroid, and this becomes a problem. Then also is the belief that sometimes uterine fibroid has something to do with spiritual, in parentheses, affiliation. And because of that, they believe that there might be an evil spirit somewhere, maybe a spell is cast on them. And because of that, they don't want to discuss it. Some people will go, I'm not saying prayer does not work, but they will stay for ages praying about it, looking for herbal medications that they're going to take, and all this thing is done at the background. Before the young girl might even think about coming to the doctors, it might have taken donkey years. So it is multifaceted. It has to do with the traditional belief system. It has to do with religious beliefs. It has to do with even the cultural beliefs about uterine fibroids. And these are things militating against the discussion, that surrounds uterine fibroids.
All right. So I would also like to ask that how early do you think that fibroids begins to develop? Because some people have that misconception that it starts later in life or in your 30s. What are the early warning signs that most people miss, and how early does it begin to develop?
That's a very good question because epidemiologically speaking, we are looking at in terms of the age group where you have accelerated growth. We're looking at between the ages of 25, 30, 40 years. Okay, this is where you have a very high level in terms of incidence. So that does not mean that people that are outliers, below 25 years or more than 40, that we don't have uterine fibroids there. But it's usually what we call the reproductive age group, but more in this age bracket. So usually we see this, so you can see that age bracket is actually the age where people are, either getting pregnant or are thinking about getting pregnant. All right. So when this is actually discovered, most of the time the woman does not necessarily know. But how do they know? Usually, a young girl begins to notice her usual menses that used to, contain, let's say, about use of 2 perineal pads. She discovered that she's now using up to 6, 5, sometimes even 7 or 8. Sometimes the bleeding is so heavy and so rapid that they come with very huge clots. And some people will say, I've met people, patients that will tell you, well, doc, this is usually normal for me. I say there's no way that this can be normal for you. During your menses, some of them even feel dizzy. All right. So if the bleeding pattern is becoming too heavy, that you may have to use several perineal pads to contain the bleeding during the month, then that is a warning sign. Or the usual abdominal gap becomes, periodically increasing in size. And she notices that most of the time is the ill fitting of clothing, is just becoming some element of tightness within her abdominal area. Then this is also a warning sign. Or she starts having unspecific abdominal pain that might not necessarily just be contained during her menses. It can also spill over even when she's not actually experiencing menses. And this is again something to worry about.
Okay, Dr. Emeka. All right, apologies. We have Dr. Rosemary, so I just want to quickly find out from her as well before we continue into the details of that. So, Dr. Rosemary, if you can hear me, so would we now say that heavy period or menstrual cycle or the use of a lot of pads can be attributed to fibroids? Is there a way that some of them are normal in some women?
Not really. There's what is normal, and that is 30 to 80 mils per month. So when you have bleeding that is more than that, it's not normal. And the commonest cause of heavy menstrual bleeding is menorrhagia. So the presence of fibroids in the lining of the womb will cause heavy menstrual bleeding. And so when we say that some people normalize it and say, this is normal for me, it's not normal. You're not supposed to bleed so heavily. When you do that, then there's something the matter. And usually, generally, the commonest cause of heavy menstrual bleeding is the presence of uterine fibroids in the womb. Please confirm that you hear me.
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. I would also like to say that we have joining us on this conversation, Toyin Taiwo-Ojo, ASQ, the Executive Director, Stop the Abuse Against Women and Children Foundation, joining us from Lagos. So, Toyin, if you can hear me, what are the myths and misconceptions about fibroids? What are some of the myths and misconceptions that we hear a lot or that people grew up with about fibroids? I had earlier asked Dr. Emeka this question, but I also want to hear from your side.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on the program. One of the popular myths about fibroids is that it's a killer. Any attempt to try to operate on it or carry out surgery, that the patient may most likely die. So most women out of fear do not want to go in for surgery. They prefer to go for herbal medicine because one of the beliefs is that there are herbs, that can dissolve these growths without invasive surgery. So I think that's a popular myth, concerning fibroids.
Okay, let me come back to Dr. Emeka. How would you say that culture or religion influences the silence around women's reproductive health?
Thank you very much. Please, can you confirm that you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So culture and religion, you see, those two are very strong points when we talk about the declaration from individuals that they actually have uterine fibroids or not. Let me quickly talk about the concept of, what they call it's not my portion syndrome. Some people will have the diagnosis made, usually using ultrasound scan. The fibroid masses are seen, they are clear enough, yet they don't want to accept that this is actually what has been diagnosed. So this issue of it's not my portion, and when somebody says it's not our portion, it becomes actually delusional or even difficult to even talk the person into accepting that there is a diagnosis as such. So this is a major issue. And some people, their religion will say, okay, this diagnosis has been made. The individual will keep praying that this will melt away or this will disappear. So it becomes very difficult to marry the two together, that there is a diagnosis somewhere, but someone is not even accepting that this is actually a diagnosis. I remember what I usually tell my patients about the, weighing faith and the wisdom. I say, well, faith is when you believe something, then wisdom is you believe and you walk. So there are two things. So the walking is going to hospital to find out if what you are saying is there or not there is there. Then you put it together, then you do something. So that is the aspect of religion, which is a problem. Then the issue of culture. Well, culture is another issue where people will tend to go towards traditional medication. All right, they go into herbal. There is this popular herbal mixture called abo, very popular in the Western here. And people go and keep taking this. They believe that this medication should melt away the fibroid with time. And most of the time, that is not actually the case. So we've tried to tell them to talk them out of it, because most of the time, some of these herbal concussions, instead of now focusing on uterine fibroid, you must have had issues with their kidneys or their livers. So we keep saying, if there is a diagnosis of uterine fibroid, all you need to do is come to the gynecologist. Let us even know if it is one that we just need watchful waiting, or the one that needs treatment, then we determine the treatment protocol. So, but I must tell you that we cannot deny that both religion and, of course, tradition has a serious influence on uterine fibroid in general. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Let me come back to Toyin. Now, we're talking about raising or creating more awareness for people, especially women and even men in general. But how about those in underserved communities? A lot of them do not have, the information that is available to those in the urban areas. How can this be balanced? How can that balance be created so that the information is evenly spread across? Tony, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Okay, yes, please.
All right, so I'm asking about the dissemination of this information, creating awareness, especially for those in underserved communities. All they know is that they're using more pads than they used to. They're having a lot more, pain during the period cycle. They don't have the information that is available as much. So how can this be evenly balanced? How can we make sure that the information is evenly spread across?
I think it has to do with the willpower of the government because according to our constitution, health intervention remains the primary responsibility of the government. I think the government should, as a matter of fact, make reproductive health one of its core mandates, especially in the rural areas. We have seen how government tackles the issue of polio in Nigeria and other childhood diseases. There was massive sensitization. There was training and retraining of medical personnel, especially those who work in local communities. We have the few, the health workers going into interior places. You will see them carrying a cooler filled with vaccines, going into the creeks, going into very remote areas. I think the government, the way they tackle polio and other childhood communicable diseases, should also be the way they tackle fibroids, because it's part of the matter. I have not done a research, but I know from my circle as a woman that there is no how you will see 5 women standing and one does not have fibroids. So it's like an epidemic, it's like a pandemic. So it is something that the government should take with all seriousness and make sure that the advocacy and sensitization of fibroids.
All right, Toyin, if you can hear us, there's a bit of a glitch in the audio, but I'm glad that we're able to, get your point. Now, I also want to find out from Professor Rosemary the danger of waiting until adulthood to talk about fibroids. When we wait before, getting to know more about this, what are the dangers? What dangers does it come with?
Fibroids affect the woman in the reproductive age, and that is a woman between 15 and 50. And so when you say, what is the danger of waiting till adulthood before talking about fibroids, strictly speaking, everyone should have the information. All right, everyone should have the information. This information about fibroid, about what it is, about what it does to the woman is something that should be out there. And so it's not an issue of waiting till adulthood. It's knowing. So as you're growing, for instance, as they're teaching biology in secondary school, as they're teaching reproductive health in secondary school, part of what they should teach is what uterine fibroid is. Okay? And it is such that families should talk about it, because there's this belief that fibroid kills. And so when you tell a woman that she has fibroids, she's so scared, she's so afraid. Many people don't want to come for surgery. Many people don't want to come for treatment because they think that they would die. So it's a conversation that should be held early. It's misconceptions that should be corrected on time. And that is where you come in. That is what you should do in educating the general public to know that this is a reproductive health issue. This is uterine fibroid is something that can happen to anyone. It's not juju, it's not a cause, it's not a big deal, so to speak. It's just growth in the muscle of the uterus that happens, and it can happen to anyone. And there are ways to treat it. All right, and you don't have to die because you have a fibroid. So the cost of late diagnosis is massive, because the more you hide before coming out to know, to share, to seek for help, the more the fibroid would have increased in size, the more the complications that would have happened because of the fibroid, the more it is possible that the fibroid has already damaged one's kidney. Okay, so you have renal pathology as a result, you have kidney failure as a result of the uterine fibroid. You can even have thromboembolism, you know, what we call thromboembolism, where the fibroids are so big, they are sitting on the vessels, the inferior vena cava, the big vessels in the body. And then the woman starts forming clots inside the blood vessels. And it can go on to affect so many scenarios in the person's body. So the cost of late diagnosis is massive.
All right, thank you so much for that, Professor Rosemary. We're still talking fibroid and the fact that it's under-detected, under-discussed, and we'll definitely continue the conversation. But in the meantime, we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. It's still FAFANUA Africa. Do stay with us. All right, it's still FAFANUA. We've opened the floor to truths often left unspoken, but the conversation doesn't end here, because when one woman shares her pain, it gives another the courage to question hers. And when people come together to talk about these things, it also gives women and even men the courage to understand and enable those who go through these things in the society. So this next round of dialogue takes us even deeper into the heart of the issues, and we're activating solutions, we're rethinking systems, and reclaiming the narrative around fibroids, youth, and womanhood in Africa. And I still have my guest with me, Toyin Taiwo-Ojo, ESQ. I still have Professor Rosemary Ogu, and of course, Dr. Emeka Philip-Igbodike. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for still being here. Let's go straight into the rest of the conversation. Now, let me come to you, Dr. Emeka. What would you say is the role of general practitioners or school health programs in identifying fibroid symptoms early enough? Do they even know these symptoms? Because when we're talking about education, it's not just for those who go through it. It's also for those who are guardians of those who go through it, the other gender, to help ease the burden on those who actually go through it. So what would you say are the roles that these people play in helping detect the symptoms on time?
Okay, thank you very much. I hope I can be heard.
Yes.
So this is education is central in trying to prevent most illness, and fibroid will not be an exception. What do I mean by this? So education, the schools from primary, secondary, tertiary, all the way. And one thing is important, that uterine fibroid is an African thing. You see for one Caucasian fibroid. So when you look at that proportion, you discover that this disease is actually an African disease. And because an African disease, so the awareness has to be top-notch. Now, the school, what do we mean by this? By the time, especially the girl child knows at a very young age that there is something called uterine fibroids, she's aware of the symptoms and signs and what to do, or adventure she happens to fall into this category. That again sets the roadmap towards how to seek for help. So this is very, very important. Integrating it into the curriculum in terms of the the primary school, the secondary, and the tertiary institution. So once this is done, it becomes easy to fight this scourge. Okay, remember that in primary level, the children, the little children, the girl child, they learn more with pictures. So by the time they see these pictures of a woman with a big tummy, the menses is heavy and all that. So they have this pictogram in their minds, and they are going to grow towards it, and of course better develop at the secondary school level. So this education, this information becomes clearer over time. Okay, then the issue of, like a professor mentioned, that people are scared that they might die and all that, because they now know what to do, how to treat this. Some of these things will be what? They will no longer be afraid. They will know that several women in fact, first of all, is that it's not all uterine fibroids that must undergo surgery. Okay, so such awareness and such truth is being packaged in such a way that there is this liberty to come and seek for help. Okay, first of all, after seeking for help, they will now determine what happens next. So information is very important. When the school, when it's integrated into the curriculum, it helps the student to know what exactly to do. And of course, the issue of, having this management of, talking about what happens during their menses, what is, when you say the menses is excessive, when it is normal. So during those educational, period, they are able to know when it is actually excessive and when it's not excessive, and know when they are going to raise an alarm. So it is very, very important. And of course, for general practitioners, yes, I know that gynecologists have been trained to proficiency in the surgery of uterine fibroids. However, at the level of the general practitioners, it is important that they should see and recognize these, illnesses. And of course, the basic, I mean, they must do for most of these patients is to have an ultrasound scan done. An abdominopelvic ultrasound should be able to, make this diagnosis easy enough, and of course, to know when to refer becomes easier, and of course, because you have that line of information and referral system, it becomes easy to capture or those who really need monitoring. So at all levels, at the level of the general practitioners, they should have this training and retraining on how to recognize those symptoms and signs, and the ability for them to refer immediately when there is need for an intervention by the gynecologist to now manage these individuals. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Very quickly to Toyin now, what do you think is being done or can be done to give women more access to proper gynecological care? Because I can't believe that in the 21st century we're still talking about the lack of basic care, some of the things that should even come freely, but women still struggle to access proper gynecological care. What can be done by the government, by institutions, by the public generally?
All right, thank you so much. Currently, I know that some organizations like banks have fixed some projects. I know autism is being handled by DC Bank, and Access Bank is also handling, I think, cancer, for cancer awareness for women, forcing women to go for cancer screening and I think examinations. Now, I think that other institutions should adopt fibroids and make it a part of the CSR, the part of the propositional responsibility for women, because women's health is in danger. And like the two doctors, the Prof and Doctor has already said, it causes the death of people. It leads to organ failure. It's a whole lot. With this fibroid that a lot of us commonize, it could actually kill. It's not that it's actually kills if there's late diagnosis. Now, if the private individuals or private organizations who come adopt fibroid awareness and sensitization, even payment of the surgery, it will go a long way. And I also think that the government should have a special insurance scheme for women. Women are part of the vulnerable group in the society. Government has a duty to women. We have been saying it, that you cannot give up the way men are being catered. You cannot leave it at that, because women are less economically empowered in our society. So there has to be government intervention when it comes to reproductive health of women. I think that with that, we will be able to begin to see changes. I want women know that, oh, there is, if someone covers this part of the treatment, all women will be willing to come out, to go for surgery. And when all women are willing to come for surgery, other women will see the success stories of those women who have gone to surgery, and they will also be encouraged, to go and do this surgery for the sake of their life. The truth of the matter is that it is not something that a government, that one person can do, because we know surgeries are quite expensive in the country. So therefore, we need government intervention, we need private organizations to intervene and make women's reproductive health a priority.
All right, thank you so much, Toyin Taiwo, for that very, very pivotal point. Professor Rosemary, how effective would you say is the current health education curriculum? Let's even take a look at the education system now in addressing reproductive health. I think that we do not talk much about some of these things anymore in schools. Would you say that it's still as effective in the curriculum, or what can be done about it?
I really don't have the competency to say what it is. I don't know what exactly it is right now in the curriculum, but I know that we as the National Association, Medical Women's Association of Nigeria, we go to schools and we give health information. All right, we organize schools debate and we talk its challenges that are there. So we go to schools and we can teach. So what is actually in the curriculum? I don't have that competence. I don't know what is in the curriculum anyway. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We do give health information.
That's fine, but I mean, based on what you hear, gone are the days when at least we know that some of these things are, extensively discussed in schools. But now it doesn't seem as if school students know a lot about it. So what do you think can be done differently for the, in the education curriculum? Let's even leave aside what is already there. How can we improve the curriculum to include some of these conditions so that people can be well aware of it before even graduating schools?
Simple curriculum edit, curriculums are not supposed to be there and you don't change them. They're supposed to be updated. Curriculums are expected to be updated with time. And so this is part of what we can advocate for. Say, look, update the curriculum. Let people have information. Because if people don't have information, then they are scared. Then they don't know what is happening. And then that culture, that silence, remains ingrained in there. So changing the curriculum, updating the curriculum, and ensuring that people have information is the way to go.
All right, thank you so much for that, Professor Rosemary. All right, let me come to Dr. Emeka now. Let's also talk health policies. Are there any specific health policies that you are aware of, at the moment that enables people basically to understand better or to tackle these issues better? Dr. Emeka, can you hear me? All right, unfortunately, we don't have Dr. Emeka. I would have loved for him to tell us about health policies since that's his field. But in the meantime, while we wait for him and while we to reestablish connection with him, I would also like to, let me come back to Toyin now. So we also know that some of these things can be maybe not fibroid entirely, but sometimes there's stigma associated with these things that make people not exactly, even those that understand what fibroid is and the dangers that it poses to their health and to their bodies. But the stigma makes people, keep mum about it. Some people are not willing to talk about it to their doctors, to their parents, their families. How do you think we can address such stigma? Tony, can you hear me? Tony, can you hear me? All right, if Tony can hear me, Professor Rosemary, I don't know if you got my question.
Please repeat.
Okay, so
I was tackle stigma.
Yes, I was talking about the stigma that makes people silent about these issues, not even just fibroid alone, a lot of issues that makes them not want to talk about it with friends, with family, even with the doctors. How do you think that these stigma can be addressed?
The easiest way to go is to educate people, to give people information. We're having this program now. This month is Fibroid Awareness Month. Can people know that fibroids can happen to anyone? It can happen to everyone, as long as you're a woman, as long as you live in Africa, as long as you are a descendant from Africa, you can have fibroid. Therefore, it's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing wrong in having fibroids. And fibroids can be treated without someone dying. If you prepare the patient adequately, ensure you know the patient's blood levels, that's for somebody who's going into surgery, and you screen and you do the investigations that need to be done, that patient will go into the theater and come out. I was teaching my students today, we do fibroid surgery, we use a tourniquet, and when we're walking, at that point in time, everywhere is dry, the field is dry, the woman is not bleeding, there's no problem. When you finish, you take out the tourniquet, and the woman is fine. And then you take her back to her ward, in another 5 days, she's home. So if people know that these are possible, then that fear is not there, because the fear, the stigma, the silence is what will people say, oh, if I have this thing and I say it up, then I'm going to die. And that is not true. So the silence and the stigma are things that we can overcome if we share information. I hope I'm communicating.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so let me come to Dr. Emeka now. I think we have him back with us. I was asking about health policies. Are there any health policies that currently exist or that are needed to address fibroids among youth?
Well, I'm not aware of. Can you hear this?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, great. So I'm not aware of any existing health policies about uterine fibroids. Remember, I said earlier that this is the disease of Africans. So ideally, these are areas where you have policies about how to help women, especially those who do not actually have the money. If they need surgery, is there a way, policy that can help them and all that for them to access quicker health, among others. So that is still something that has to be looked into because, what is important here and central is that uterine fibroid, like I said earlier, for every one Caucasian, we have about 4 to 9 African women that have uterine fibroid. So that means this is quite a lot amongst us, And so if this is actually an African disease, must be some laid down policies that will influence a better approach, in terms of research, in terms of treatment modalities, in terms of trying to, promote educationals. We just feel talking about the issue of curriculum or curricula that actually involves uterine fibroid. These things should be integrated in such a manner that it will be, popularized among young people so that they will know things about uterine fibroid. And those who have diseases, there must be policies in terms of treatment, because there are a lot of modalities of treatment, a lot of approach. Some of them will really require money. And in Nigeria here, we talk about poverty and all that, education, and also how we try to ameliorate all this in such a manner that individuals have information at their doorstep. These are things that political will help to foster. So, but as we speak, there is no known, unless it just came out a few days ago, about what to do for these women. But on a more serious note, some of this awareness program that we're doing right now is to reach out to the public, about, and of course, the stakeholders are talking about the lower arm, the upper chambers. They look at this, what can they do for women, in terms of policy making. So for now, there is none yet, but like I said, unless it just came out a few days, but this is something that must be looked into, at least to, help women that may not necessarily afford the costs or whatever treatment modalities or even investigations, because sometimes they might need to do ultrasound scan, they might need to do MRI. These things cost money. How do we, put policy that can say, okay, come, if you have uterine fibroids, these things can be done for you free or subsidized, so that people that will say, okay, because I don't have money to access this care, but they can say you can see gynecologists, you can do this at because you have uterine fibroids, and these policies are, there, passed into law, and of course, women can harness it.
All right, thank you so much for that. Professor Rosemary, let's also talk about the role of the other gender, which is men, in the society. So basically, how do you think boys and men can be included in this conversation? Because oftentimes we're preaching to the choir. We're talking about female-related challenges, and we're only talking to the women about it, when men can also be helpful, in helping navigating some of these challenges in the society. So how can boys and men be included in these conversations in meaningful ways?
I believe there are men watching this program right now. So it's not just the boys watching, it's not just the females watching. So if they are watching, then they can hear as well. In the same vein, when we go out for our outreach programs nowadays, we don't talk only to women. You talk to men as well. When you go out to give information, you don't give only to one gender. Those are the things that we used to do in the past, and we have learned now that that is not the way to go. So including the men and boys in the conversation helps. And I'm glad that today, as we are in the studio, there is a man with us here giving information as well. So that's the way to go. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for that. All right, still talking about the role of everyone else but the women. Let me come to Dr. Emeka. How can parents or guardians become more supportive around, reproductive health?
Okay, yes, this is very good, because we are really going to the grassroots. When we're talking about guardians, we're talking about parents. That means that these are people, most of the time, the girl child, these are people, the first liners, they are going to see their parents, and of course, maybe a girl in her let's say 22-year-old, 23, and she's noticing that her menses is becoming too heavy. Most of the time, yes, of course, we have good relation with their mothers. Mommy, my menses is really too heavy. What do you think? Just that will open a channel for so many other, litany of events that can go on. So the mother also, who is also educated, because this is all about education. So the girl brings the information to the mother who is also educated. Like if she's watching this type of program, we say, oh no, I think somebody mentioned about possibility of uterine fibroids, or even if she does not know, let her just go to the hospital. You see, beautiful or good health-seeking behavior solves a lot of problems. Because for her just going to the hospital, definitely she's going to see the frontliners at the hospital. He's going to further, subject to investigations to find out why is she bleeding so much. So for just the girl child talking to the mother, he's already started solving the problem before she gets to the doctor, the gynecologist, who is, of course, the last person to see and all that. So this is very important. The same way with guardians, You see, there must be a situation whereby the girl child has to be listened to. Listening to the girl child is very, very important. So whatever she's saying, don't just say, that is the way. There's this cliche of, don't worry, it is your age, or whatever the flow you're experiencing is because of a particular.
Dr. Emeka, can you hear us? Unfortunately, we can't have Dr. Emeka anymore. But very quickly, Professor Rosemary, let's talk about the role of social media. What role do you think that social media could play in breaking the stigma around women's health? In 1 minute, please.
A lot. Social media is a lot, because a lot of people are there. When you're talking about TikTok, you're talking about Instagram, you're talking about Facebook, LinkedIn. There's a lot that social media can do, so people can put out information there. Unfortunately for us, too, there's also a backside to social media, because people can put information there that is not correct. And so I think there's a lot that we can do. I know we are working with Media Heads and Rights, where we are giving out information to adolescents about different things concerning their reproductive health. I'm thinking that we should add fibroids to it as well. But out there, if you're listening to us today, if you're a healthcare professional, please put out something on social media, something to tell people about fibroids, let them know that it is normal, it's not a death sentence, it's not a diabolical thing. It's something, fibroids can happen to anyone, and it is perfectly normal. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. One last question, and that's to Dr. Emeka. Same question, basically. What role do you think social media can play in bridging the gap between the awareness of fibroid and solving some of these complex challenges in the society?
Thank you so much. One of the beautiful things about social media is speed. You just put something here, and within a minute, somebody in US has seen it, somebody in South Africa, and all that. So one of the fastest way of spreading information, but however, we must be able to be careful about what is said, in the social media, because it's a two-edged information system. It can either be negative or it can be positive. So it is actually a thing that, like, I remember there is one of the cases I published, and I put it on the, on LinkedIn, about a lady that we are able to operate on her, and we are able to deliver 12.9 kilograms of uterine fibroid. We put it there on LinkedIn for people to read it, because somebody might see that and say, wow, so the issue of waiting for too long is actually a problem. So social media, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, or whatever, the healthcare professional should be able to leverage on this and showcase the truthful information. I always tell people that whatever you hear or you see on social media, always try to validate it with your health professional, those that are board certified, so that to be sure what you are doing. Don't just take everything whole and sinker. Unfortunately, there's a lot of brain drain. Doctors are becoming fewer than usual. And there's a lot of pressure with patients. But at the same time, even if it's once in a week, one should be able to put something out there to educate people about the menace of uterine fibroid, what to look out for, and of course, when to seek help. Seek help, so that there won't be issue of hearing that fibroid kills somebody because the person had been bleeding, became so anemic. All these things have to be showcased on on social media, so that people know what exactly to do and do it fast enough.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to say a big thank you to my guest for today. Of course, in absentia, Toyin Taiwo-Ojo, ESQ, Executive Director, Stop the Abuse Against Women and Children Foundation in Lagos. And of course, a big thank you to Professor Rosemary Ogu, National President, Medical Women's Association of Nigeria, Port Harcourt, Rivers State, and of course, Dr. Emeka Philip-Igbodike, Consultant, Obstetrician, Gynaecologist, Minimal Access Surgeon, who joined us from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, we've heard the stories, we've seen the gaps, and we've felt the weight of what's left unsaid. But if there's one thing that we're leaving with today, is that the pain is not something to normalize. It's not something to keep quiet about. It's something to understand It's something that everyone has to come together to tackle and to heal. So whether you're living with fibroids, supporting someone who is, or simply listening with an open heart, remember your voice is power, your story matters, and people around you also matter. Silence is not strength. This is FAFANUA Africa, where we speak the truth, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. My name is Blessings Mosugu, and it's been an absolute pleasure being your host on the show. Have a great day, and see you on our subsequent episode.